No. I have to get out of here. There's got to be some way to escape.
And we're live, and that is on loop. Whoops. Anyways, I am Adam. This is highly articulated, kind of, I guess. Now that this isn't technically, well, it's highly articulated, the channel, but I guess the show's not called that now. I don't know. You know, things change. We evolve, we change, we grow. Anyway, I'm here. You guys are here. Let's hang out. Let's talk about Star Wars today, shall we? It is, of course, May the 4th today. And so for those of you that celebrate, for those of you that are fans of Star Wars like myself, this is, I know it's not an official holiday or anything like that, and I don't take it too seriously. I do like to watch, a little bit more Star Wars today than I normally would. I am sort of a little more interested in Star Wars today. So is the world of people trying to sell me things, which we'll get to in a minute. But yeah, it just I just love Star Wars. So May the 4th is always kind of a fun day, just to do a little bit of extra Star Wars stuff. I'm gonna play Jedi Fallen Order or whatever it's called, the Star Wars game a little bit tonight. I was shopping for Star Wars stuff this morning, unsuccessfly, I might add. So yeah, just let's hang out. Let's talk Star Wars. I am gonna, talk about Star Wars from my perspective, but I'm very, very curious to hear from you guys as well. In terms of some things that I'll discuss. I was gonna just ask the questions, but then you'll comment and I'll have to go back and it'll be confusing. But anyway, yeah. But before we do anything more, let's check in with the chat. Josh Brown is here. Saf is hanging out. Larry's Geeky World. Mr. Ryan Clark. Ray Paz. Red 5. Thanos Copter. John from the Collecting Brothers. Good to have you guys all here. Happy to be here talking Star Wars. Unhappy that I didn't get the Star Wars item that I wanted this morning. So let's right away just jump right into that, because it is I didn't think it would sell out as quickly as it did, and I also didn't think that there would be a queue on the Disney store where I would have to wait to be disappointed. I mentioned this last week, of course, that I was really, really excited about this mouse droid, MSE6 mouse droid, that was released today through the Disney Store online from what's called the Galactic Archive series. I don't know if there's other things in the Galactic Archive series or not. This appeared as low stock when I was able to log in, which was within about, I think, 20 minutes of it launching. It was showing as low stock, but I wasn't able to add it to my cart. It was saying sold out before it was saying, or it was saying low stock, but it was giving me a sold out message. So I couldn't even add it to my cart. the price was right, so I was like, I'm in. I'm gonna pick this up. The mouse droid I have always loved is kind of one of those. I think like the Camtono, it's like one of those things where it's just one of those details that doesn't really need to be there, but because it is, it has this aura about it. And I love that there's little like keyhole, port doors for mouse droids to get through throughout Star Wars, and we've seen them before, but if you didn't know, you might not have noticed them and stuff like that. So the mouse droid is just super, super cool, and I was a little bit bummed that I didn't get it. Now it did very briefly. I refreshed the page and it said like in stock, added it to cart, tried to check out, and by the time I went to check out, it said out of stock again. So I think it'll come back in stock. I think I'll probably be able to get it. If not, hopefully next time I'm at a Disney park, hopefully this will be sort of something that they carry in the park, and I will be able to get if I can't get it online here. But this is the one thing that I was sort of after, that I was a little bit bummed that I couldn't pick up, but life goes on. Gatey's Toy says that mouse droid needs cup holder. It's too small. I mean, the thing is like, I don't know, it's probably like 6 inches tall. You might get one cup holder. You might get one cup holder to fit sort of right in between the little lights or whatever. But I don't think you'd be able to get cup holders plural. That's for sure. This thing, it was just I had seen that this was going to go up, so I was very excited to get this. But as I said, I don't need it. Life goes on. This is not something that it didn't ruin my day or anything like that, let alone my week or even my year. But yeah, I did want the mouse droid, and so I'll just have to wait a little bit longer to pick this guy up. They released a whole bunch of other stuff too for May the 4th. There was like Hoth collection, Empire Strikes, a whole bunch of Empire Strikes Back stuff. It's the I don't know, it's like the 45th anniversary of Empire Strikes Back, which is like 45th anniversary of something. Is that significant? I don't know. Like every time it's a 5, is that like enough? Like 40, 45, like 50 I get, right? 50 is half a century. 45 is like 45% of a century. Like it's a weird thing to kind of celebrate. But some other cool stuff that they had up as well. The Shin and Balon. What's his name? I can't remember. I haven't watched Ahsoka in a while, and I forget names. Like I said, I'm a terrible Star Wars fan. I can't ever remember the names, but you can get the set of their lightsabers, which is super cool. If you are collecting lightsabers and you have room for that kind of stuff and you have a budget for that kind of stuff, which I don't. I have a couple sabers and I'm going to get a couple more. I've already decided that. But again, I think I can wait till I go back to the park. Just, like I said, there's just a lot of cool stuff. This electronic, hollow Jarek set was pretty cool. There's a bunch of like random stuff that I have no need for either, but they did have this, which I thought was kind of cool. You get the Anakin lightsaber with the little sort of droid that shoots the lasers, and it's a little interactive game thing. Again, don't need it, so didn't pick that up either. I'm just refreshing the page constantly to see if that mouse droid comes back into stock. The Galaxy's Edge stuff, I was a little bit curious about. Why did that one come up? Sorry, John, didn't mean to pull your comment up and leave it there. The Galaxy's Edge stuff, I think is cool, and I've got a couple Kyber crystals, but I definitely want to complete my set. But again, I feel like I could order them, but it's kind of more fun to be there and to buy them in person. And I know that they will sort of always have those in the park, so I don't really necessarily feel the need to get those. This is really, really cool. This C-3PO premium helmet is very, very cool. I saw this at the park, And as much as I would like this, again, I don't have room for it. I don't need it. I don't need any of this stuff, but so you get this C3PO, vac metal helmet. I don't think it's actual metal. I think it's, plastic. But it lights up, it's electronic. I think it has like voice and stuff like that. But you can actually remove the gold helmet part, and you get the like that episode 1 look of C3PO with the wires and just sort of the eye sockets just plugged right in there, which I think is it's pretty cool. Oh, there you go, Galactic Archive series. So maybe it's just like a Batu thing. Maybe it's like a a Star Wars Galaxy's Edge series of products. And actually, you know what? Let's check. The holocron is also very cool. Let me see if this says Galactic whatever collection. It doesn't, but I think maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's sort of like things sold in the park that are Star Wars have that designation. These are super cool. So if you put I think I talked about these last week, but I'll talk about them again very briefly. You can see where this opens up. You can put a kyber crystal in there, and then it'll like speak to you, which is pretty cool. I don't know if you can put a green crystal in there and get Luke Skywalker to talk to you, or whether you can only put the sort of red kyber crystal in there. But yeah, they light up, they do sounds. It's like just cool stuff, just cool Star Wars stuff, right? They had they had other stuff too. I'm not gonna take too long talking about what they released on the Disney Store today. But there was the other thing that I thought was cool, which I didn't buy again. Nope, that's not it. There was a Wampa plush toy. Not very big. I mean, it's 11 inches tall, so it's a decent size. I mean, he could probably interact with your Black Series figures. But what I thought was amazing is that his arm is removable. Whether that's Velcro or a magnet or what have you, I don't know. But I thought it was pretty funny. Looks like Velcro. I thought it was pretty funny that he has a removable arm. I thought that was pretty clever. But $35 for a plushie, I can live without it. I've already got the Porg that speaks, so I don't need and it's like 1-to-1 scale. No, it's a bit smaller than that, but this Wampa is cool, but I don't need it at all. And that was about it. I mean, there was other stuff. I think there was like some Black Series stuff that has gone up in the last couple of days, and the Ezra Force Effects lightsaber went up. That's pretty cool, among other things. But yeah, that's not necessarily what I wanted to talk about today. What I wanted to talk about today is I talk about I have often referred to the story of sort of how I fell in love with Star Wars. But today I want to, because it is May the 4th, and because I can, because this is my platform. I can do what I want. I wanted to tell that story again in a little bit more detail, maybe, and then sort of elaborate on that and talk about why I think my experience with Star Wars has had such a sort of deep and lasting impression on me. The story starts when I was 5 years old, so it kind of makes sense, but there's other things, other shows, other movies, other IPs that I saw at 5 years old that I don't even remember. So, what is it about Star Wars that has sort of stayed with me? So that's kind of going to be what I'm going to talk about today. Probably going to be a pretty short video. I'll be perfectly honest, because no guests, not talking about news really. I will probably talk about not so much news, but I might talk a little bit about like Andor and Skeleton Crew and stuff like that, like the new Star Wars stuff that's coming out. Unfortunately, I didn't get to the theater to see Revenge of the Sith, but life goes on. I've seen it before. I did. I wasn't like missing anything. Larry's Geeky World. Balin. Thank you, Mr. Ryan Clark. Balin and Shin. Yeah. Okay. I probably won't remember that. You didn't go for those ears. No, I didn't. The Star Wars, there's a bunch of different ears that I would have gone for. But ears tend to go more I don't know. They tend to go a little more feminine. I think the only ones that I would get that I would theoretically wear, there's like a Wicket set, so they're like fuzzy. But then there's a big old bow on it, so it's sort of doesn't work. But there's those ones, there's the Princess Leia ones. The Hoth ones are pretty cool. If they did an Endor one, I would probably be more inclined, just because Return of the Jedi is my favorite, and Hoth is cool, but I mean, Empire's good. You know, it's objectively probably the best of the movies, but it's not my favorite movie. So, Larry's Geeky World said, would love to get those holocrons. The holocrons are pretty cool. As I said, I did see them at the park and didn't pick them up. I did order the Jedi one, and I'll be picking it up, or sort of getting it, collecting it when I go to Joe Fest. So stay tuned. I'll be talking about that probably when I get back from Joe Fest. John says the Wampa is hilarious. Yeah, I didn't realize that the arm came off until I actually kind of like clicked on the product page, and was pleasantly surprised to see that it had really cool details. That being said, $35. I don't know. There's other stuff I'd rather buy for $35. Yeah, this is this is exactly it, Josh. This is the tail. This is my tail. No, okay. So let's just get right into it, and then we'll circle back. Like I said, and I'll talk about sort of, or just by default, just because I'll sort of end up there. I'll talk about how I feel about Star Wars now. Current Star Wars, what Disney is doing with Star Wars, all that kind of stuff. But you'll probably have a pretty good idea of what I'm going to say on that when we get there, just because of what and I'm just rambling. I don't have I don't have notes. I don't have any specific details that I wanted to point out or anything like that. But for anybody that hasn't heard the tale, I will cast my mind back to 1987, when the movies weren't that old, right? Like 1977 was A New Hope. I was born in 1982. I was 5 years old in 1987. Just started school. I was in kindergarten. And my after school care, I would finish kindergarten, and then I would walk to my babysitter's house from school, back when you were able as a child to walk places without parental supervision. 5 years old. That's it's crazy to think that now, but it wasn't that far, and it wasn't unsafe or anything like that. Now people would probably call Child Protective Services, but in 1987 they didn't. So I would walk to the babysitter's house. My younger brother, who's 2 years younger than me, was in sort of full-time child minding there. So he was 3, I was 5. I'd get off kindergarten, I would walk, not very far, a few blocks to the babysitter's house. And because I was the only kid of that age, they didn't really know what to do with me. So, there was sort of 2 and 3-year-olds running around, and the babysitter was sort of minding them. And I don't know how or why or like what sort of transpired to sort of set up this this sort of situation. But at some point, they said, well, do you want to just watch TV? We'll just kind of put you down in the basement. There's a big TV there. It's comfortable. You can just hang out. here's what we have to watch. I don't remember any of the options. I don't remember any of the choices except Return of the Jedi on VHS. Now, in 1987, I think, if I'm not mistaken, having a VHS copy of something wasn't super cheap. Like, it wasn't like you had, people didn't have huge collections of movies back then, or if they did, it was at great cost to them, because it wasn't like it is now. You didn't get it for like $5 or $10. Like, I think it was expensive. So that kind of explains why all they had as far as Star Wars was Return of the Jedi. She had an older son, and it was actually his copy of Return of the Jedi. I can't for the life of me remember his name, but it's not important. So I'm not going to sort of rack my brain about it. But they put on Return of the Jedi, and I watched Return of the Jedi start to finish. And then I did the same thing. It felt like every day that I went there. It probably wasn't every day. I probably didn't watch it 5 times a week. I probably didn't watch it, for however long school is, 30 weeks out of the year, 40 weeks out of the year, whatever it is. But I remember watching it often, and I remember just absolutely being blown away by it, just absolutely enamored with the Ewoks, especially. So whenever people talk bad about the Ewoks, I don't get it. Because it's one of those things where I have such a fondness for the Ewoks that I actually love both of the Andor movies. And every time they do Ewok movie or comic books, they did a 4-part series recently that I was absolutely sort of thrilled about, and they did a one-shot a couple years ago that I was excited about. And when Black Series does Ewoks, I'm getting all of them. I love the Ewoks. I love Andor. And for me, as a small child, Luke Skywalker was always a Jedi Knight. He was never the whiny farm boy. He was never kind of finding his way as a Jedi. He showed up on screen for me as a Jedi, hood up, robes, I don't know what it, like when he's sort of telling, what is that power called when like Jedi influence, where like he's telling Bib Fortuna one thing and then Bib Fortuna's like repeating it, and and then he tries to do Jedi mind control, Jedi mind tricks. Is that what it's Jedi mind tricks? I think is what it's called. When he's doing when he's trying to push Jabba, and Jabba laughs and he says, that doesn't work on me. And then he fights a Rancor, and then he gets everybody off the sail barge. Like, to me, Luke Skywalker was always a hero. Luke Skywalker was always a Jedi Knight. Luke Skywalker always had one mechanical hand. Like I said, I watched them in reverse order. I saw Return of the Jedi first, and then I saw Empire Strikes Back, and then I saw New Hope. So Luke Skywalker for me was always the Jedi. And then, of course, at the end of Return of the Jedi, on the Death Star, the sort of defining for me kind of image of Luke Skywalker was sort of eternally kind of dedicated to the idea of being good, of not turning to the dark side, of not not killing Anakin / Vader, not killing Palpatine, just being, if and he's not perfect, okay, but as a kid, as a 5-year-old, that's sort of how I interpreted it. Now there's a little more nuance to who Luke Skywalker is. But for me, he was always a Jedi Knight, and he was and is my favorite Star Wars character. And I think it's largely because I watched Return of the Jedi first, and because I watched Return of the Jedi over and over and over before I saw any other version of Luke Skywalker. That version of Luke Skywalker is, for me, um, the version of Luke Skywalker. And so everything else is sort of a variation, including, Farm Boy Luke, including the Last Jedi Luke. But I use the Return of the Jedi Luke as sort of the starting and ending point in some way. So why did that have such an impact on me? I think it was a whole number of things, right? It was you got the Jedi, like fully Jedi at that point, and sort of you get a battle in a forest, and as a kid, the space battles are cool in the ships and the running around the Death Star and doing that kind of stuff, or running around a Star Destroyer in A New Hope is cool, but it feels a little bit more far removed. I think the whole thing on Endor, being that it was filmed in the Pacific Northwest, and I'm not technically in the Pacific Northwest, but I'm not far off. It didn't feel so much like a galaxy far, far away to me. It felt like it felt a little bit more familiar, I think, because it was Return of the Jedi. So I had that sort of juxtaposition of the Death Star and Endor. But then yeah, you still get, X-wings, and you still get TIE fighters, and you still get everything in Return of the Jedi. And it was like it was perfect. It was everything that a 5-year-old's brain could handle and more. And I absolutely loved it. Now, as far as the sort of legacy of that film in my life, I think there's moments that Luke has in there that sort of stuck with me. The sort of dedication to the cause, um, unwilling to the unwillingness to sort of take the wrong path, even if it's the easy way. Um, the Now again, there's aspects of Luke that don't, he's not always this way and everything, right? But this was my impression of Luke Skywalker. And these sort of formed core memories for me. So, the resilience, the sort of the idea of resistance against evil, the idea of seeing good in people, and knowing that they're bad, but understanding that there should always be a chance um for redemption. These are all things that I, I identify with, that I like are oddly like, when I watch Return of the Jedi and I see sort of Luke be Luke, and it's only recently that I've sort of had this epiphany of like, I have those same thoughts. Like I am him, he is me, and is that a result of me watching Return of the Jedi so many times, and that was sort of imprinted on my young brain? Maybe. It may very well be. Um, is that good or bad? I don't know. But that's sort of where my sort of love of Star Wars came from. And that's why, as I said, Luke Skywalker is and always will be my favorite character, and why Return of the Jedi is and will always be my favorite Star Wars. Now, as far as where did that take me later on, I've always loved Star Wars. There's never been sort of a time where I didn't love Star Wars, and there's never been a time where I've looked at Star Wars and thought, oh yeah, they're getting it wrong, or they're doing it wrong. Because I think for me, um I'm just absorbing it. I'm just sort of soaking it in. I'm just sort of appreciating what Star Wars is, and not you know, I understand where people are sort of like, you know, I was in the theater in 1977, and you know, this isn't how Star Wars should be for me. That's fair. I get that. I totally understand that. I totally understand people wanting a different resolution, especially, you know, if you've had that inside you for so long and you've been sort of waiting for the end of the story, um and you've been imagining it a particular way, right? You've been sort of imagining, oh, this is the way this story should end. I totally understand that. I am not in charge of Star Wars. And I never I never feel any ownership of it. I guess I enjoy watching it. I enjoy sort of soaking it all in. So when it was sold to Disney, I was like, oh, that's cool. Now somebody else is gonna put out, you know, the Blu-ray version or whatever, because it was a while ago, and you know, that was still relevant. You know what they've done since with it, and oh, I didn't love the prequels. I'll say that I didn't love the prequels. I still don't love the prequels. And that was still Lucasfilm. I think there's too much going on. The CGI kind of takes me out of it because I absolutely love the miniatures, and I absolutely, you know, loved the sort of visceral aspect of Star Wars. And I think with all that CGI, it feels less it feels less real, which is a dumb thing to say with Star Wars because it's science fiction and it's totally all of it is fake. All of it is fabricated, but the CGI, like even watching the remastered, you know, original trilogy now, there's elements where I'm like, yeah, that doesn't it like, you know, A New Hope when they come into Mos Eisley and there's CGI stuff, just it gives me the icks. Um, you know, the CGI Jabba that Han talks to in the cargo hangar, cargo bay, whatever, loading dock. Well, I don't know what it's called. It feels off. That CGI Jabba feels off because then in Return of the Jedi, you see that, you know, that real Jabba, and it's so much better. It's just looks so much better and it looks so much cooler. But anyway, I digress. I didn't love the prequels. So to me, it's not like, oh, Lucasfilm was perfect and then Disney took over and screwed it up or whatever. For me, it's sort of like the Return of the Jedi is perfect. Empire Strikes Back is really, really good. A New Hope is really, really good. The prequels were fine. But it wasn't the characters, you know, it wasn't Luke, Han, and Leia. Um, And I don't know. I just like it doesn't connect with me quite as much as the original trilogy. Fast forward to the sequel trilogy. I actually connect more with the sequel trilogy than I do with the prequel trilogy. And I know that there's a lot of, you know, a lot of folks that don't like the sequels. Personally, I love the sequels. And again, mileage may vary based on user. I get that. But I think part of it too is that I got kind of more back I got sort of back interested in Star Wars and back interested in sort of going deeper with Star Wars as a result of as this story has been told before, you know, like getting back having having my first child 9 years ago. Star Wars came out sort of right around the same time. Force Awakens came out right around the same time. You know, I was looking at the toys more. I was looking at, you know, I was buying the Lego big time. So the sequel stuff to me, they also went back to more practical stuff. They also went back, in my opinion, to like a more similar feeling in the galaxy to the original trilogy. The prequel trilogy felt more I don't know. That's the prequel trilogy feels very kind of wooden to me, and it feels more formal. It doesn't. It didn't feel as. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, my opinion. You don't have to agree. I'm not trying to convince anybody what they should like or not like. Then, of course, Disney Plus comes in, Mandalorian comes in. Fantastic. Absolutely love season 1 of The Mandalorian. Then they start doing things like Visions. They start doing you now have access to Clone Wars, then they do Bad Batch, then they do and I'm going to forget things for sure. But Skeleton Crew, I absolutely loved. I know it wasn't for everybody. It was for me significant because now with 3 kids, I was able to sit down and watch a new Star Wars thing with my kids. And so I was sort of able to enjoy it along with them. It's for kids. It was, the Skeleton Crew, I think 100% is for kids. And if you're not into that, that's fine. You have Andor, which I think is kind of the other end of the spectrum as far as live action Star Wars goes. Now, if you don't like Skeleton Crew and you don't like Andor, I don't know. I don't know if there's any hope for you as a Star Wars fan of ever seeing something new from Star Wars that you enjoy, because I think you've got sort of Star Wars stuff that's still geared for kids, and then Star Wars stuff that's geared more for a more mature audience. I don't know what you might want in between. Maybe Acolyte. Maybe you're the minority that Acolyte is your favorite. I enjoyed Acolyte. I didn't love it, but again, it was more because the High Republic stuff felt more like the prequel trilogy, and it just didn't speak to me in the same way. But anyways, that's sort of my sort of Star Wars journey. Now, it brings us up to the present, and all of this is kind of coming together because I was able to go to Galaxy's Edge this year, and it kind of like triggered something, and everything kind of came together. Me as a 5-year-old to me as a 42. Yeah, I'm still 42. 42-year-old being at Galaxy's Edge, being on Smuggler's Run, and pushing the lever to jump the Millennium Falcon into to light speed. I was like, yeah, it felt like a full circle moment. And then being in Savvy's lightsaber workshop and sort of building a lightsaber of my own, which just sits on my desk. It hasn't moved. It hasn't left my desk. It's like in my hand every single day. It just it's just it sort of reignited and kind of and then further fueled my sort of love of Star Wars. And like I said, just the whole idea that Star Wars is about sort of the hope that is ever present in our galaxy, not just in a galaxy far, far away, but it's sort of a reflection of the hope that is present, and I think maybe that's the sort of lasting thing that is sort of deep in my soul now, is that there's always hope. There's always hope. There's always something there's always something worth fighting for. There's always worth something to believe in. Um, and regardless of everything else, good times and bad, I would say, there's always hope. So that's it. That's my Star Wars journey. Um, and that's sort of the full complete story. I always like reference parts of that story, but I don't think I've ever like sat down and just sort of like gone through the whole thing. John asked a minute ago, and by a minute ago I mean like 20 minutes ago, have you been enjoying Andor? I love Andor. I love Andor, but I love all Star Wars. Like that's kind of, and it sounds a little bit like a not a shill thing, but like it sounds like I don't pay attention, or I'm not critical when I say I love all Star Wars. But I think all Star Wars has its place in the in the tome I don't think that's the right word, but in the complete sort of collection of Star Wars, the fact that we have the Young Jedi Adventures, which is like an animated series, which I'm probably getting the title wrong, that my 2-year-old loves. The two older girls both have enjoyed a YouTube series called Jedi. Oh, I don't even remember what it's called, and it's like they didn't do a good job of promoting it, but basically like a 3 teams of 2 kids go through these challenges. Jedi Challenge? Maybe that's what it's called. But it introduced Keller and Beck into Star Wars. Keller and Beck, for anybody that isn't familiar, is played by the actor that played Jar Jar Binks, who was much maligned, as though he was the reason, as though the actor was the reason that character didn't work for everybody. I don't have a problem with Jar Jar Binks. I love that Keller and Beck, is in Star Wars, giving the actor, his own sort of retribution and redemption. He actually in is it in Ahsoka? Now I've lost track of like all the different Star Wars stuff. I believe it's in Ahsoka that Keller and Beck. No, I think it's in Mandalorian, right? Season 3, maybe. I can't remember. Anyways, he saves a bunch of younglings in Order 66. So, I just think that's a very sort of touching and poignant moment where Star Wars sort of did something, I think, really generous and really sort of gracious for an actor. Anyway, moving on. I love Andor. I love all Star Wars. I didn't love. I should take that back. I didn't love the Acolyte, but I don't hate the Acolyte. I just did. There was things about it that I really liked. I really liked a Wookiee Jedi. I don't think he was in there enough. I really like the sort of the bad guy in that. I did enjoy, seeing different styles of Jedis, different lightsaber styles, all that kind of stuff. I did like the witches. I just didn't love it. I didn't love all of that. Mr. Ryan Clark said home video wasn't really a thing until Batman. Yeah, it was, like I said, it wasn't, they didn't have a whole lot to choose from, which is why I chose the same thing over and over and over. Josh Brown says, as a 1982 kid, Return of the Jedi was my favorite as a kid. Yeah, but is it still your favorite? That's the big, and Brick says, may the force be with you. Toss the saber. I'm right there with Brick. I love the saber toss. In what's that in Force? No, it's not in Force Awakens. At the very beginning of The Last Jedi, when Luke throws the saber over his shoulder, I think it's significant, and I for one am really excited for what Rian Johnson is going to do with the Star Wars trilogy. I may be in the minority on that, but I'm very, very happy to hear that that's still in the works, and it's just a timing thing. They're going to wait till he's done with his sort of current projects. But Thanos is going to watch Return of the Jedi tonight. I'm going to watch, as soon as we're done this, I think I'm going to watch Revenge of the Sith. We're moving through them in the release order with the kids. So we watched the original trilogy. We did episodes 1 and 2. Now we're going to do episode 3, and then we'll do episodes 7, 8, 9. And then next year, maybe we'll be really ambitious and try to do like the whole timeline in chronological order. I was trying to think of it today. I can't even place them all. But anyway, a sequel. Brick says, I hope, sorry, I'm way behind on these comments, so I'm going to sort of catch up on the chat here, and then if I see any questions, I'll just kind of flag them, and I'll circle back. Brick said, I hope folks come to peace with Star Wars being as big a project as Marvel Comics or DC Comics. In this modern era, it's tended to go on and on. It's less a story and more a world. Yes, and that for me is sort of exactly the point. It's the world. You don't have to love every story. Like every story doesn't have to be for you. There was like George Lucas has famously been asked like, well, why do you think people didn't enjoy this? And about I think it was about the prequels, and he said because they weren't kids. And I don't know that that's accurate. I didn't enjoy it for different reasons. I still see the imagination in all of Star Wars. I still see the fun, and I still see, I absolutely still see the passion that people put into all these projects, even if they're projects that I'm not passionate about, like The Acolyte. I get what they're trying to do, and I appreciate what they're trying to do. Collecting Brother said loved Rebels, made me go back and finish the Clone Wars. I had the same experience. I actually, loved Rebels. It was a rocky start in season 1 when they were trying to figure out what they were. I think they were trying to be a kids show, and then I think they realized very quickly that they didn't want to be a kids show. And then seasons 2 through the end, I think, really leaned more into the lore for the better. Star Wars Resistance, I thought was a really fun show. If you guys haven't watched that and you want something lighthearted in the Star Wars world, there's still enough Easter eggs in there that it's still, I think, worth a watch. Ryan Clark says Skeleton Crew was amazing, great homage to the 80s adventuring kids movies, E.T., Goonies, etc. Absolutely, it's an adventure, and I mean, it doesn't, not every piece of Star Wars has to sort of fit with all the other pieces of Star Wars. I'm okay with retconning or having things that don't sort of work together, that somewhat contradict, and because they're just different takes. It's just different stories. Now it is a world. I guess that kind of contradicts me saying it's a world, and all the pieces are sort of but they don't have to fit. I mean, I guess I grew up with comic books too, and so I know that you can reset things or sort of adjust things. There's artistic license. None of it's real, so it doesn't have to sort of play by any rules other than the rules that they set for themselves. Brick says if you're judging any of that stuff as being good or bad Star Wars, you might be missing the boat. I don't know. I think it depends on how you're kind of looking at it, in the sense that I think you can objectively say that certain pieces are good or bad if you're being sort of critical of the quality of the piece, on its own. Now, as far as them being good or bad versions of Star Wars, I think that becomes very, very difficult. Because then that's just opinion, and that's subjective, not objective. Yeah. But I think we're sort of saying the same thing. We've talked about this before, and I know that Brick and I pretty much are on the same page. So Brick says, I like reading the Chris Claremont X-Men era and saying that's what Marvel Comics are and all the other titles are bad. Yes, exactly. It doesn't work that way. Brick says, that said, I think that's supposed to be, I'm a Star Wars fan, just like I'm a Marvel Comics fan. I like the entire project and world, move through it, enjoy some more, some less, and hate to judge the world by its installments. Yeah. Jedi Temple Challenge was the show that introduced Keller and Beck. And Brick says, highly recommend watching Light and Magic documentary. Yes, it is fantastic. The Ahmed Best stuff, I think, is in season 2, if I'm not mistaken, so it's pretty new. But yeah, I haven't watched that yet. I watched season 1. But the Light and Magic, again, you sort of see what these people were trying to accomplish, and it's remarkable. Vine Jungle Figure Factory says Return of the Jedi is my favorite because monsters. Absolutely, you get a whole bunch of cool stuff. You get a Sarlacc, you get a Rancor, but I even think that like in like Jabba's palace, you get the Gamorrean Guard, you get Jabba, you get a whole bunch of kind of just grotesque and monstrous creatures. Mr. Ryan Clark says, I need Rian Johnson to finish the Knives Out trilogy first. To the best of my understanding, that is the plan. So Rian Johnson is scheduled to finish the Knives Out trilogy, and then he will move on to the Star Wars trilogy that he has planned. As I said, I don't know what to expect from it, but I really, really enjoy Rian Johnson as a writer. And I think if he goes less Knives Out and more Brick, and if you haven't seen Brick, find it and watch it. It's fantastic. Vaz says, toss the saber was a slap in the face of what Luke stood for. I understand where you're coming from. But I respectfully disagree. I think, Luke is still my favorite character, but I think he is allowed to change and evolve and become the Luke that he was. And by that I mean I can understand somebody being in the position that he was, becoming cynical and jaded and effectively kind of turning his back on the idea. My take on that is that he didn't so much turn his back on the idea of what being a Jedi was. I think he kind of turned his back on what the Jedi, like what Jedi perceived them to be. And I think maybe on some level I can relate to that. Which is why I think that, her coming to him with an idea of Rey coming to Luke with an idea of what she's going to get from him effectively. And him, tossing the saber and basically saying, you're not going to find what you're looking for. The Jedi aren't what you think they are. And there, that could be a 5-hour long conversation, but I thought that moment made sense. And I know a lot of people think it was just for like dramatic or like comedic effect or whatever. I disagree. I think Rian Johnson knew exactly what he was doing. There's a comedic element to it just because of the timing, but I think it has much deeper resonance in terms of what it meant, in terms of how Luke felt about the Jedi in that moment. Anyway, I'm still behind on the comments, so I'm sure people are commenting about what I'm saying right now. I'll try to catch up. 1-6 Shooter said, put Tony Gilroy in charge of everything. No, don't put Tony Gilroy in charge of everything. Put Tony Gilroy in charge of a bunch of stuff. Put Filoni in charge of a bunch of stuff. Allow Bryce Dallas Howard to direct a bunch of stuff. What else? There's a lot of people doing a lot of good Star Wars stuff. I think this, Trevor, I know you're held in very high esteem, and I hold you in very high esteem. So with all due respect, I disagree with you. I don't want any one person to be in charge of everything. I want more people to be allowed, to sort of explore more of the galaxy. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's a good. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Brick does make a very good point, and I forgot this, even though I just watched it and I remember it. Toss the Saber technically started at the end of Return of the Jedi and picks back up when we see Luke at the start of The Last Jedi. At Return of the Jedi, in Palpatine's chamber on the Death Star, Palpatine basically is trying to sort of get him to kill Vader, and to sort of choose that path. And Luke throws away the saber. He throws the lightsaber. I mean, he has it 10 minutes later at the end of the movie, but he does throw it away and says, this is not, the Jedi is not, lightsaber wielding soldiers. Like there's more to it. And I think like I said, I think the Jedi are perceived to be just these lightsaber wielding warriors, and he just doesn't want them to be that way. So, Mr. Ryan Clark, the prequels have a lot of love now, precisely because it was a lot of people's Star Wars when they were kids. Yes, yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of people that their first exposure to Star Wars was Episode 1. And there's a lot of people, surprisingly, that are a little bit younger that don't have the same hate on for Jar Jar Binks and for the prequel trilogy. Again, I didn't dislike it for any reason other than it just didn't I didn't connect to it as much as I did the original trilogy. Hello there, Jeff Morris. Good to have you. Return of the Jedi, you also get a metal bikini. Best movie ever. Fair point. Mr. Ryan Clark says Luke was changed by his failure and trauma. I agree. I think anybody saying that Luke should be exactly the same as he was in Return of the Jedi anybody that says that Luke should be the same when we sort of encounter him in the sequels as he was at the end of Return of the Jedi is doing a disservice to the like 30 years in between there. People change pretty dramatically in that amount of time, and I think he went through a lot of stuff. So DJ 5000 says Luke was going through some stuff. Of course he's going to change. Yes. Ray Paz, I prefer the rebranded extended universe timeline. I still love a lot of that stuff. And I love that they're slowly kind of picking little bits and pieces out of extended universe and kind of re-injecting it, like, pull something out, tweak it a little bit, and sort of put it back in so that it becomes canon. Eventually, who knows, like 10, 20 years from now, extended universe might not exist. It'll all just be sort of Star Wars canon again. And Trev says Gilroy is done anyway, but Andor is the best Star Wars since the original trilogy. Andor is amazing. I mean, I think for people that sort of grew up on the original trilogy, I think Andor is like the most age appropriate and sort of the most mature Star Wars thing that kind of lines up with where most of us are kind of like in life, if that makes sense. So I think it resonates really strongly with the demographic that was sort of around, and I'm younger than you, Trevor, by a lot, but not that much. But I think the older you are, the more Andor kind of feels maybe more Star Wars, if that makes sense. Whereas not everything has the same vibe, so maybe that's part of it, I think. Brick says, yeah, Luke changing, and also Luke brought balance to the Force and saved the galaxy and his dad, but tossing his saber and refusing to strike down his enemy. So when Rey says, come fight, yeah, it's not, he's like, that doesn't resonate with him. Hence how he fights the First Order at the end of The Last Jedi. That's valuable Jedi wisdom there. Yeah. Agreed. It just, there way, it's that thing where like the older a warrior gets, the more they realize that fighting never gets them anywhere. So I think there's sort of an aspect of that having the wisdom to know that you don't always have to fight. And this is a very good point too. And again, because I started with Return of the Jedi, I didn't know this. Luke was never really good at being a Jedi. He was barely trained. Being a Jedi was him trying out his dad's hobby because he never knew his dad. That's a good point. And DJ 5000 says Tony Gilroy, no thanks. So there you go. Like that, like I said, everybody's mileage will vary, for different stuff. Like I said, I what Tony Gilroy has done, I've absolutely loved. But I would not say that I want only Tony Gilroy to do Star Wars stuff. Rey and Kylo have to come to terms with Anakin and Luke's lesson. Yeah. Yeah. Holding up Gilroy or Favreau or Filoni to do all Star Wars is flawed. I agree. You know, you lose a lot of flavor. You lose a lot by limiting, you know, who's allowed to tell the stories. I think one of the most poignant moments that I think in the Last Jedi was Broom Boy. You know, the idea that Force users aren't all significant. You know, that you can have Force users, and I kind of feel that way about Star Wars storytellers. You know, the guy who's sort of in charge of Star Wars Starfighter, that was announced at Celebration. I've seen people comment and say like, well, you know, his you know, his resume is kind of like comedic films. I would argue that comedic writers, comedic directors, comedians, you're kind of you're pigeonholing them if you suggest that they can't do anything else. Because what comedy has to get right is timing and cadence and pace. And I think that anybody that has done good work in sort of a comedic setting might do very, very well, you know, in a Star Wars setting. There's always comedy in Star Wars too, and I think that gets forgotten or that gets sort of lost or just you know, ignored when people are sort of looking at these things. I'm actually really excited for Starfighter. I think Ryan Gosling, I really like Ryan Gosling. I I'm I want to see Starfighter. I'm excited for Starfighter. I'm excited for Rogue Squadron. I'm excited for um The Mandalorian and Grogu. I'm excited. Like, bring it all on. I want all of it. I think tonight I'm gonna watch the Underworld series. Is that what it's called? Star Wars Underworld. Can't wait for the third sort of chunk of Andor. Yeah, I'll take it all. Let's see. I didn't call Trevor a senior citizen. I think he might be a senior citizen, but Trevor's great. He's still, you know, for his age, he looks fantastic. He's in great shape. I know that Trevor can take it. Let's be honest, Trev knows this. I'm certainly not the worst. Trevor takes a lot of flack. But Trev, you're an awesome guy. I'm very happy to know you. No Chewing is here. Good to have you, buddy. DJ 5000. I enjoyed The Last Jedi. Broom Boy at the end gave that hopefulness resonance in Star Wars. Yeah, I loved Broom Boy. I didn't have a problem with Canto Bight. I didn't have a problem with Rose. I didn't have a problem with Finn. I mean, there were, the sequel trilogy has flaws, and I think it's largely because there was no plan. I think if you consider the sequel trilogy as 3 standalone movies, they're all pretty decent in their own right. I think as a trilogy, it fails a little bit because there's like no connecting tissue between them when you kind of look at them as like one piece. But yeah. Yeah, that's more or less all I got. As I said, I'm gonna go watch more Star Wars stuff now. And unless you guys have any other questions, anything else you want to talk about, any more Star Wars questions for me, like what do I think of X, Y, and Z or whatever. But otherwise, I'm probably just gonna wrap it up and get on with the rest of my May the 4th. think I might build a Lego set. And I think I'm gonna watch, as I said, episode 3, and then I'm gonna watch Underworld after the kids go to bed. I'm gonna refresh this page and see if I can buy a mouse droid. I probably can't. Nope, still sold out. Oh well, life goes on. I'll keep trying. Yeah. Let's see. Mr. Ryan Clark says, "What do you think of X, Y, and Z?" Brick something says, "Curious, where is Star Wars to your kiddos? Is it up there for them?" It's not. I mean, it's they enjoy it, and I think after Disneyland, they're more interested in it. They're more sort of open um to seeing more of it, or and sort of learning more about it. They, they've been Star Wars has been around our house always, and they've watched, all 3 of them have watched, a bunch of different series, anything that's age appropriate. They've watched a bunch of the movies. But it doesn't resonate with them like it does with me. They don't have, I was explaining this after we rode Smuggler's Run, and I got to, push the lever and sort of have the Millennium Falcon jump to light speed. That nearly brought me to tears, because for nearly 40 years, all I wanted was to sort of be in Star Wars. And they were like, "Oh, okay." But they don't get it because they haven't done anything for 40 years. So it just doesn't have the same, gravitas. It doesn't have the same significance to them as it does for me. But they loved it, and I don't know if anybody cares, or where Disney Plus added a few Star Wars things today. They added Tales, it's called Tales of the Underworld. So Red 5 is asking, what's Underworld? Tales of the Underworld is like a little kind of short series about some of the, like, Cad Bane's in it, Asajj Ventress, and a couple others, animated. But I'm kind of curious to see what it's all about. But Disney Plus also added, Star Wars Rise of the Resistance, like just a little video of like going on the ride. And then they did like a walkthrough of Galaxy's Edge. And the kids all sat there and watched both of those with me this morning. And it was like really, really fun and cool. And they were asking more questions about Star Wars, and they were like, "Well, what's that? Who's that? Like, what's the?" So it's really cool. It's something that I get to share. Maybe 40 years from now, they'll have the same feelings about Star Wars that I do. I don't know. Josh Brown said, "What if one of your kids wanted to pull the lever?" Okay, so for anybody that hasn't ridden Smuggler's Run, I will sort of do a very, very quick rundown. You are in the Millennium Falcon. There's 6 people that go in. You have 2 pilots, 2 gunners, and 2 engineers. Being an engineer kind of sucked, but apparently they updated that as of like this week, and now the engineers have more to do. But basically, there's 2 pilots. So the pilots sit at the front, and the pilot on the left controls left-right movement, and the pilot on the right controls up-down, but also pulls the lever to jump to light speed. That's your job. Like, they even say, like, right pilot, pull the lever. When I went the first time, my 5-year-old and I were the pilots. The up down is like flight stick. So down is up and up is down. And I was like, we're gonna crash constantly. So she was left, right. We still crashed constantly. I was up down, but I didn't even realize, it didn't occur to me until they said, pull the lever, that it was my job. And I didn't. I'm the same. I was the same way with Galaxy's Edge as I am with like movies that I don't watch trailers. I don't read sort of the early information about any Star Wars stuff. I'll read like a synopsis so that I know kind of what it is, but I don't want any spoilers. So I didn't know that the right pilot pulls the lever. I went back again and I was a gunner, and that was super fun too. But the whole thing was super fun. If the kids wanted to pull the lever, we would go again, and they could have been the right pilot. But that was my job when we went, and I didn't choose my spot, so that I would get to pull the lever. I chose my spot so that it would be easier to like enjoy the ride. And Josh Brown says, "Oh, there are different roles." Yes, everybody has a job. Everybody has a job when you're on Smuggler's Run, which is super cool. Larry's Geeky World says, "I watched the first 2 episodes of Underworld. Pretty good so far." That's good to hear. I'm excited. I mean, I don't love the bounty hunter stuff as much as some other people do. But I'm excited to check it out for sure. I'm probably more excited about series 3 of Visions, which is coming out, I think, later this year. DJ 5000 says Destiny chose you to pull the lever. Yeah, that's kind of what it felt like. I was nearly brought to tears there, and I was nearly brought to tears building my lightsaber. So it again, like I said, it felt like a full circle moment, about 40 years in the making. So when I go wait for the right pilot, you know what? Your first time on Smuggler's Run, you want to be the right pilot. I think that's pretty safe to say. Maybe, I don't know. Again, everybody's different. Being a gunner was fun. It felt like you were less responsible for everybody else's ride, but whatever. Brick says, "Yeah, Josh, they put you into your group. It put you into groups of 6 into 3s, so you have two pilots, 2 gunners, 2 engineers. For our experience, the first time we went on, it was 4 of us, and then we had sort of 2 people get added on. Those 2 people were like a mother and her young daughter, and she's like, "We don't care. We'll be the engineers. We'll go at the back. We've been on the ride a bunch of times." So my 5-year-old and I were the pilots. My sister-in-law and my 9-year-old were the gunners, and then the other 2 people were the engineers in the back. The second time we went, I got the ride share pass because we had our 2-year-old who can't ride it yet. He's still 5 inches away from being able to ride it. I think we measured today just so that we would know for next year. So my wife and I were gunners, and then we had 2 kids piloting, and they blew it because they were kids. And then their parents were behind us. Clearly not big Star Wars fans. I don't know that they even pushed any buttons. But anyway, it was fun. It was fun, and I can't wait to go back. And we're planning to go back next year. So we're hooked. We're a Disney family now, which is fine with me because I want to go back to Galaxy's Edge. Brick, have you got a show today coming up in 25 minutes? Or somebody was saying, somebody was asking if you had a show today. I don't know. I always just assume you do. Brick said next year you got to go bounding, basically lightweight cosplay, whole family of Star Wars people. I just learned about that this week, and I plan on doing that for next year. I'm already shopping for like the appropriate attire, because I don't have that, but I know my kids would be into it. My wife maybe less so, but that's fine. She'll play along. She's awesome. Josh Brown. Okay, so my 5-year-old had no idea what was going on. We did worse the first time around when we were the pilots. then when these two kids were pilots the second time around, I want to go again. Well, I want to go a lot more. And get two people as pilots that kind of know what they're doing. Because I didn't realize your ride can be longer or shorter depending on how well or how badly you kind of do your mission. So the second ride was actually longer than the first ride for that reason. But yeah. And yes, Brick has a show in about 20 minutes. So I'm going to wrap things up again for the week, and then we'll call it a day. All right, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure as always. You know, a little bit different. Didn't talk much about toys. Didn't talk as much about anything really other than Star Wars. Any a little bit more of my sort of personal story, personal experience. Nothing planned for next weekend. That might change. Stay tuned to the channel if you want to. Feel free to hit the notifications button. Feel free to subscribe. Feel free to hit the notifications button. If you don't want to, that's fine too. But as I sort of move towards a less regular schedule, that might help if you're interested. I do have some Star Wars stuff to unbox, and so I might be doing some Wednesday night videos. Again, they probably get. I'll try to sort of post them earlier rather than later, so they're not really a surprise. But usually Wednesday, 8:30 Pacific, so late night. But yeah, other than that. What button do I have to push? I forget. Oh yeah, just remembered. Other than that, guys, thank you, and may the force be with you. Bye-bye.